Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Donoghue here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal, and welcome to this week's podcast. On Tuesday, the IFA launched its strategy for the liquid milk sector to ensure the long-term viability and availability of fresh local milk on shop shelves. I spoke with the IFA's dairy and liquid milk executive, Catherine Lascaretz, about the strategy and the future of the sector. I'm joined now by Catherine Lascaretz, who is IFA's dairy and liquid milk executive, to talk about the association's liquid milk strategy, MilkWise 2025. Catherine, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Catherine, IFA launched its strategy on the future and how it sees the liquid milk sector rolling out over the next few years. Some saying a crisis. Your president, Joe Healy, saying that warning consumers that there could be a shortage of liquid milk in winters to come. Where did you start? What was the launching point for doing this strategy?
I suppose the launching point for this strategy is simply that we are seeing increasing evidence that farmers are either adjusting much more tightly their calving pattern to their liquid milk contracts or are leaving the sector altogether. And the reason why we're saying this is that between in 2013 we have seen a reduction of the cover of fresh milk from freshly calved cows from about 11% in 2013 to about 5% surplus in 2014. Then I don't have similar statistics for the next 2 years, but I have a good proxy, which is calving, autumn dairy calving, which fell back by about 15% in 2015 and by a further 12% or so in 2016. So, it's clear to us that when it comes to milk from freshly calved cows, because that's what we're talking about, there will be at certain points, it mightn't necessarily be for the whole of the winter, but there will be certain points where there will be a problematic availability. Now, I know that some people have criticised that view and have taken I've even suggested that it was crying wolf and so on. We would disagree respectfully for the simple reason that, we are in the middle of a significant dairy expansion, but what that expansion is about, it's about more compact calving in spring calving to grass, to produce across the summer with minimum additional feed concentrate input, to stretch across, to sort of extend lactation then into as much of the autumn as possible, and then to take a break for 2 months. And the reality of fresh milk, your carton of milk on the supermarket shelf has a shelf life of about 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks supermarket shelf life depends on that milk coming from freshly calved cows. So late lactation milk is great for all sorts of purposes. You can use it for all sorts of manufacturing milk and butter, cheese, powders, all sorts of products. But when it comes to milk that goes for pasteurizing, minimum processing, and basically ends up on the supermarket shelf, if it's not milk from freshly calved cows, it just doesn't work.
And you cover a couple of points that we'll discuss, and we'll talk about the crying wolf later, but the reduction and the natural reduction maybe in dairy farmers in the liquid sector. Joe Patton-Chagas has said before that it's maybe the wildly inefficient ones who will stay in the liquid sector, that the people who want to have the feet up in December and part of January, that they're the good farmers are going to go to production and spring calving. Do you think, how would you react to that? Do you think, and the overall cycle of farmers who are remaining within liquid?
I don't know that I would put a judgment, a sort of a quality or a character judgment into it. But what I would say is there are a number of farmers who don't really have a choice when it comes to how they go about producing the amount of milk that they need to generate the income they produce. And that's because they might have a limited amount of land. They might be in a part of the country where their ability to expand in physical terms to actually get access to additional land is just not available. So to produce the milk that they do, they need to produce it year round. So you have that cohort. But you also have a number of farmers who have produced, I would say that you probably will find that they have a long tradition. You might find that their forefathers before them were involved in liquid milk. So this strong tradition. And And what often happens, or it seems to happen, and we had a good example of that last October in Peter Farrell, is that, the younger generation takes over, who is not necessarily as tied into this tradition, is by all accounts, perhaps more numerate than their predecessors, are certainly better educated, are more focused on the business, and aspire, which is, I think, pretty legitimate, to having, a decent income, but also a good quality of life. And guess what? The best way to achieve all of the above, in the Irish context and with the Irish, the optimum efficiency, is the creamery milk system. It's the spring calving, compact calving, and so on. Now, that's fine, and there's no issue in that. But what it does mean is that when it comes to fresh milk, who's going to be there to supply it if everybody that can goes down that road?
And that leads us on nicely, I suppose, to the who can supply it, and what we said earlier, and you referenced it earlier in the piece in this week's Farmers Journal. Strathroy Dairies, Cormac Cunningham, the director there, said the IFA is crying wolf here. They relaunch this strategy every 12 or 18 months, saying that there will be a shortage of milk, but even at the lowest production month of the year, we will have more than double the volume of milk to cover all our contracts. So he thinks that there's no problem, that farmers will naturally ease the way out of liquid milk production in the south. There'll be no autumn, no winter milk, and that they'll be fine, that they'll bring it in. So,
I mean, look, that's one of the alternatives. If our Republic of Ireland milk producers all go towards spring milk, then you could have a situation that imports of milk from Northern Ireland, which accounts for about 26% of sales at the moment, might increase. The concern I have at the moment is, what will happen with Brexit. So that's I'm sure Cormac Cunningham knows no more than I do about it at the moment, but certainly that would be an issue on the horizon. And the other concern I would have is within this jurisdiction, Republic of Ireland, and I make no apologies for representing the interest of the Republic of Ireland liquid milk producers. It is a very valuable business. It's worth 530 million euro at retail level. Of that, Republic of Ireland suppliers supply about 400 million of it. And, you'd be doing a lot of marketing of your cheese and powder and butter around the world, especially if Brexit actually interferes with some of our trade flows, to actually find a home and a valuable home, an equally valuable home for that milk. I think, to be honest, it would be a crying shame to allow a very valuable market, which is valuable for everyone. I mean, quite clearly, the dairies from Northern Ireland who supply milk in the Republic of Ireland market depend on it being a valuable market, and they are part of that market. That's the reality of it. So I would say, no, we're not crying wolf. I think we're highlighting a very real development. Will there be scope for more Northern Irish milk imports? There may very well be. But the bottom line at the end of the day is, if the too large a number of Republic of Ireland specialised milk producers walk away from that commitment, and if on top of that we have a Brexit deal in a couple of years' time that results in milk being some way less available, and I'm not wishing that by any means, because I think the implications of it would be disastrous across the board, because it's a bigger picture than just liquid milk. That is not a desirable outcome, we would suggest.
And finally and briefly, what's the next step now from this the Milkwise 2025 strategy, Catherine?
Okay, well, we're meeting with Minister Creed tomorrow morning, so we will be presenting this to him. There are a number of the aspects of our strategy that we need him to take a close interest in, and that we need some government action on, particularly when it comes to empowering the National Milk Agency further on issues such as data collection, but also in terms of ability to implement the consideration of adequate compensation a little bit more rigorously and on the basis of more rigorous economics and with more teeth, basically, for the National Milk Agency, more legal teeth. We also need him to take a serious interest in the domestic market for milk in the context of Foodwise 2025. That's why we've called this particular strategy Milkwise 2025. We were being a bit cheeky in that. And it's really about saying, look, we have a domestic market in the context of our export orientation for dairy, origin green, our image on the world market and so on. We need to make sure that our national market reflects and is a good portfolio for that, and shows that we have a strong, vibrant, domestic market for fresh milk, produced locally as much as possible, with the inputs from Northern Ireland imports, which are a fact of life, and we've no issue with that, but in a way which retains the value of that market, nurtures it, and creates a bit of extra obligation on retailers to pay attention to the manner in which producers are remunerated. I'm quite sure that Northern Irish milk producers are as keen as Republic of Ireland milk producers to get a fair price and a fair shake out of the retail returns for themselves.
Very good. Catherine, we can read more about IFA's liquid milk strategy, Milkwise 2025, in this week's Irish Farmers Journal and on farmersjournal.ie. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
Our news reporter Amy Fitzgibbon was at the launch of Milkwise, and there she spoke with John Finn, who is the IFA's liquid milk chair, as well as being a liquid milk producer himself, about the changes he has seen since he started milking in 1984.
I'm here at the launch of the IFA's liquid milk strategy, Milkwise 2025 in Dublin, and I'm here with John Finn, the National Liquid Milk Committee Chairman. Now, John, you're a liquid milk producer yourself, and during the course of the presentation this morning, you said that in 1984, liquid milk was the business to be in because of the kind of premiums that liquid milk farmers were getting. But it seems that the liquid milk industry is in a bit of a crisis at the moment, and we rely on all these the 1,800 specialist producers to, put the milk in our cereal in the morning and our cups of tea, etc. So, is the liquid milk industry in crisis?
I suppose that's the reality. It's the I suppose in 1984 there was no retailers really involved. The milk was sold from the farmer to the dairy, and the dairy actually delivered the milk door to door.
Okay.
So there's been a big change since that. It's a long period of time. So the reality is now the milk is going through the retailers largely, and there's no door to door sales. So there's another element.
And what has that done to the industry? That's 79% goes through the retailers of liquid milk, isn't that right? So.
That's correct. And I suppose what that has created is what we see is a race to the bottom. I think the 1 year tender contracts that have come in the last few years really is probably the last straw, and that's what we want to change if we can. And so that farmers can see what they're getting maybe over a 3-year period, rather than these 1 year tenders where one dairy loses contract to another dairy, and then that dairy is in a bit of a crisis if it's a large volume of milk, because they no longer can pay the premium to their farmers if they don't have that outlet for their liquid milk. So we see these 1 year tenders as a real threat to the industry.
And so basically they're giving farmers just 1 year contracts, even though, like you were saying, it's like a 2 to 3 year breeding plan that farmers have to put in if they want to produce liquid milk.
Yeah, exactly. For farmers to have cows calving in the autumn, them cows have to be inseminated 9 months earlier. So you're really working a year before you actually get the milk. So farmers have to commit to that, and if that dairy loses its contract, well then it needs to spread the burden of the lost contract over the existing farmers that are left. So it reduces the price, and that creates the problem. Now, the other dairies may get the contract, and that creates other problems, that they may not have the supply of fresh milk in the first place. So it's an area we'd like to see changed.
Okay, and John, how successful has the IFA been so far in engaging with retailers to talk about this issue of the 1 year contract?
We've just started to talk to the retailers about this now, and that's why we've included in our strategy that. And I think what we want to see now is transparency in the way the whole business is run.
How feasible is that, though, I suppose, considering that all the sectors have been trying to get more equality into the food chain for a long time? Like, how feasible is it that it'll happen just for the liquid milk sector when so many sectors are looking for that kind of equality at the moment?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough ask to actually think that we can get something that the vegetable producers and so on now. So that's why we support the other areas in looking for an ombudsman that will deal specifically with the relationship between the farmer and the dairy and the retailer, whereas the competition, there's a person in place at the moment, and he doesn't.
From the competition.
And he deals between the dairy and the retailer, but he doesn't really have any power to deal between the farmer and the dairy. So that's why we're meeting Minister Creed on Thursday to forward our proposal that we get an ombudsman for basically all the perishable goods sector, so that 2-for-1 selling doesn't go on as frequently. And we know the consumers like to get products at a reasonable price, and they like these offers, but it shouldn't be the primary producer that should be responsible for financing such developments. So we'd like to see a promotion. So we'd like to see that handled differently.
Okay, and just on the issue of we saw earlier that there's a lower number of calvings in autumn, even though the number of dairy births have been going up each year. They've been lowering the number of dairy cows born in autumn has been decreasing over the last 2 years. So that means that I suppose more people are leaving the liquid milk industry. So how likely is it that there's not going to be that many liquid milk producers in Ireland in the near future?
Well, I suppose this is why we actually brought this strategy forward, because we can see that at farmer level at the moment that farmers can expand into creamery milk now because the quotas are gone. And so the other thing is land mobility has been improved by developments by the Department of Agriculture on various issues. So farmers with land that they're more inclined to rent it to dairy farmers. So dairy farmers are expanding, but you can't expand into liquid milk in the first place because there's a stable market. There's very little increase in the liquid market. So the reality is that farmers have become more efficient, and the more efficient farmers can, as Peter Farrell, the guy we had at a rally, described, you get 7.5 cents per litre premium for the winter, but it maybe costs, you make about 0.5 cent if you're lucky of that premium as profit. So
this is in the liquid milk.
With liquid milk. So his point would be, why work? If that's all that's out of it, why not just stay at creamery milk, where you don't have to work during the winter, and you have a big workload in the spring, but at least the weather is better, and you can make the same income, if not a better income, from creamery milk because it's grass based, and Ireland is very good for seasonal produced milk.
So this is what you're hearing from young dairy farmers, that they're just not interested in going into liquid milk.
Yeah, well, I have a son who's just coming into farming at the moment. He's in New Zealand this year, just doing a bit of work in agriculture, and so he sees it out there that low-cost production is the way forward, and unless we can turn the liquid milk ship around, he's not going to want to stay at liquid milk long term when he comes back from New Zealand. So that's why I think we have to get changes, and maybe this 3-year contract, if we could get, and then farmers would have visibility on what they're going to get paid. So it's a bit like the fixed milk creamery system that's there, where you can fix some of your milk for long periods. And we think this could be a good move if it could happen.
And just finally, talk to me about Brexit. 26% of liquid milk comes from the north. Is that right, into the Republic?
Yeah, that's correct. If we took a very narrow view, we'd say, put up the barriers and keep it out. But unfortunately, that's not what we want, because we have so much exports in cheese and butter to Britain that we wouldn't like to see a tariff coming in on that. So we need to, and there's so much milk that's crossing the border anyway, going both ways, that it would be much better if there can be no tariffs on milk coming in. But what we'd like to see is to make sure that the milk is at the same quality and standards as that are in the EU at the moment, and that Irish farmers need to, the standards that Irish farmers have to have their milk, the same standards would always be there for milk that's imported.
Okay, so you don't think there's an oversupply coming from the north at the moment?
There's 26%, which is a lot. But once Britain is in the EU, there's nothing. Milk can come from any place in the EU, so that's the reality. You just have to deal with it. Yeah.
And when you said earlier, John, about it's not something you can expand into liquid milk, do you mean that you can only be doing liquid milk on your farm?
Well, I suppose what I mean is that the overall consumption of liquid milk is pretty static in the country. So the only way you can get into liquid milk is somebody else exited it. Okay. So maybe there is capacity for people to get in, but the reality is nobody wants to get in at the moment because, compared to when I started farming, like liquid milk was the golden egg to be at if you want, But that time, you had to have the quota built up. You couldn't just get into it. So, but now creamery production has, the ability of people to grow grass has been transformed in the last 10 years. So, and grass is the cheapest form of food for cows, and Irish farmers have actually the world leaders in producing grass now. So, the whole the easiest way to make money is from producing grass as a dairy farmer. So that's the big change that's happened in the last 10 years.
Okay, so hopefully this strategy will work and Irish consumers will be able to continue enjoying fresh milk in their cornflakes for a long time to come. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The Irish Farmers Journal weekly podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Some 200 farmers gathered in North Tipperary to protest against excessive farm inspections in the area this week. I spoke with farmers on the issue, which they say have been ongoing for a number of years. Joined now by Tim Cullinan, chairman of Tipperary North IFA. Tim, we've a couple hundred people walking up into Nina protesting over inspections. Why is there such an angry group here? Just give us the backstory.
Yeah, look at Patrick. This issue has been going on in North Tipperary for a long number of years now. There is more inspections per farmer in North Tipperary than any other county in the country. But furthermore, from the number of inspections, there's far more penalties as well.
Have you been able to put a figure on those penalties?
I have indeed. Those penalties have cost North Tipperary farmers 1.28 million in the last 6 years.
And what type of inspection is that on all types or cross compliance?
No, it's just cross compliance. It's not including land eligibility, and we believe land eligibility could be close to another million. So, Patrick, this is a substantial amount of money. You yourself have witnessed the anger of the farmers here this morning, and this has come to a head. We met with the department back in September of last year. At that point in time, the department informed us that the penalties going forward from 2012 were decreased substantially from the previous years, but when the figures became available to us more recently, in fact, the situation is far worse, and we sought a meeting with the department on numerous occasions, and the department have failed to meet with us. So it left us with no option only to organise this protest here today.
So
we're walking up to the department here now, and what we're looking for is a meeting from the department, and we're willing to stay here until we get that meeting.
And that's exactly it. It's sleeping bags if needs be. You're waiting for this meeting.
Oh, absolutely. If it takes sleeping bags, whatever it takes, we want the meeting, and we're going to stay here till we get the meeting.
Jack, you were telling a story there about an inspection that you had.
I had a reps inspection on the day my mother died, and I think he sort of said condolences, and then the next question was where are the bird boxes, and then he continued to the day, and I went back to my family and organised undertakers and all the rest of it. But I had
there was no remorse, there was no empathy.
It didn't show much. No. So, but I just feel that if that's the attitude of people, and if they don't know better, or if the people who are interviewing prospective candidates don't know better on what kind of people to have as inspectors, then the department should be looking at themselves very carefully.
And obviously, this was some time ago. This is in the last.
Oh, it was 4 or 5 years ago now.
The department has been carrying on for.
Well, I don't think the situation has changed, or the system has changed.
And what are you farming?
Mainly tillage, and I share farm tillage.
So the message over, part of the 300 farmers here today is
well, look, I put it another way. When my son was doing his exams, I remember a university man saying, "We're here to pass you, not to fail you, but the department's inspections are to find fault." And I think they'd be better off to say, "Look, I can't come back again, but I want these things fixed sort of within the next week." and then we look again. But that will be better than just coming in, practically looking underneath just a bit of plastic or underneath anything to see if they can find another fault. And they don't do that in the rest of Europe, I don't think.
John, a lot of farmers here today, a lot of farmers in your situation and situations like it, inspections, penalties as a result, and more in this area than anywhere else. It seems to be a very difficult one for the farmers in the area.
Yeah, big problem. Just coming in and doing inspections, giving short notice. I'll give you an example of mine. Situation was there 2 years ago. I had a confirmation on a Friday, and the inspector rang me on a Tuesday, and I told him my situation. I had a thing to go for. I had a confirmation to go to, and your man insisted on coming. So that I said, that's fine, come. So he told me he'd be on at 11 o'clock. Arrived at 12. Got out of his car. He says, if you want to go, I'll do the inspection on my own and this thing. And I says, no, you'll come with me and you'll be gone.
That's right, yeah.
So, that's not fair. If a lad is even doing the inspection, maybe says he's going to be there, it's just been pure arrogant about the thing.
And the word that everybody is using here is the fear. It's the hanging over you.
Yeah. That's just
the 365 days of the year.
You don't know when you're going to have a lad in your yard, and at the end of the day, I've 5 in family, and I'm a small farmer of 50 acres, and trying to make a living out of that, and rare family. It's just, that's all we want.
You're part of a group of a couple hundred, maybe 300 farmers here protesting at inspection issues and whatnot in North Tip. Figures have shown that farmers in your area are more affected by this. You yourself have been on the receiving end of a cross-compliance hit.
We've had inspections and we've had follow-up inspections. And when we had the follow inspection, he didn't even tell us what, at the end of the day, couldn't even tell us how we even got on.
Yeah.
And he told me it was just flippant remarks that he used to go on, it is going to be 1% anyway.
Yeah.
We were caught for 30 cubic metres of dung that I forgot was even there in the pile. And so that's 1%, because we were done the previous in the previous 2 years for 20%. That was tripled up to 3%.
Wow. I can sense why it's always an emotional thing.
Yes, it is. We got a phone call at 5:10 on a Friday evening that he's coming out on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock. He arrived. He spent the whole day there, and the stress and the time that it takes, we spent the whole week trying to make sure that we had everything in the yard, and which we had in a reasonable year. But it's the fear and the unknown that these guys, the power they have to come in and literally take money out of our pockets.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Earlier this week, I sat down with Macra Farmer President Sean Finan to discuss the organisation's CAP policy document, which has been given to Commissioner Phil Hogan last week. Here we discuss some of the key recommendations from the report. Patrick Gunno here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal, and I'm joined now by President of Macra Firma, Sean Finan, to discuss the Macra Firma's CAP consultation presentation for 2020. Sean, a fairly comprehensive document. The first one Commissioner Hogan, EU Commissioner, has received from any farm organisation in Europe. Just take us through some of the key points from your perspective.
Thanks very much, Patrick. Yes, over the last number of months we've engaged with up to 1,000 young farmers across the country in face-to-face consultation, and also we got young farmers to complete our online survey. So all of that information was collated and put together to form the Macra Firma CAP 2020 Roadmap for Generation Renewal Policy.
Presented last week in Europe.
Presented last week in Brussels to Commissioner Hogan, and also launched in the European Parliament last Thursday. Where we presented it to a number of the MEPs, and also presented it to CEJA last week, which is the European Council for Young Farmers, which Macra Firma is an active member of, and will have an influential voice in the shaping of the CAP policy in terms of young farmer measures. And we're delighted to say that a number of our proposals have found their way into the CEJA current document, and they're finalising theirs over the next few weeks, and we hope to feed the remaining ones into that over the next few weeks in early April.
From reading through the document this morning, Sean, a couple of the big ticket items that you picked out, the you want to maintain the cap budget, obviously.
That's a very important one.
In
yes.
the wake of Brexit, possible.
Well, we have to have the ambition. Well, first of all, we would say we have to maintain it. We've also said in our document that there should be an ambition to even increase the budget, and we know that that's probably very unlikely. But we have to have that ambition. Brexit is a huge challenge and poses a huge challenge for the budget. But really, Brexit is a political decision that had nothing to do with our young farmers in Ireland. Have nothing to do with. So the decision that was made. So it's very, very important that we're not penalised and suffer as a result of the decision of the British electorate.
And you're moving, or I suppose you're proposing to move away from the reference year, because cap payments are still linked to 2001, 2002, 2003.
Yes,
you're trying to phase that away for maybe taking up a little bit more of the environmental type measures.
Yeah, we have proposed a division of direct payments as part of the policy, a four-way split. One, an area-based payment. Two, 40% of the budget towards that. 30% of the budget towards environmental measures, which will be results-based measures, and also a 20% portion of the budget to a farm development measure, which could include a coupled payment element, but also encourage farmers to look at their farm business, and also then 10% of the Pillar 1 budget, or the direct payments budget, but also 10% of the overall budget be assigned to young farmer measures, and by that all measures would be young farmer approved, so even measures within the rural development programme, or even the couple measure, that there would be a top up for young farmers as part of that. So that would be the divisional split of the budgets that we would be proposing. We want to move away from the historical reference years, and what we are saying is that there should be an ongoing national reserve to cater for the needs of young farmers who enter, which would be operated similar to the current crisis reserve fund, whereby the money would be taken off, but could be redistributed back if it wasn't used within that particular year, because as you know, the National Reserve was a once-off allocation in the 2014-20 programme. It is a difficulty in terms of its replenishment, so that would overcome that problem.
Absolutely, and I suppose you've opted for the the technical term generation renewal, getting young farmers farming, I suppose is maybe the more succinct way of putting it. You're going for the carrot and stick, I suppose. To get the transfer of farm going. 63, you have to put a succession plan in place. 65, by the age of 65, a farmer has to have transitional period in place, and then by 70, there must be in a collaborative arrangement. So you're trying to get that young blood into farming.
Yeah, we have the priority of the EU Commission that set out as generational renewal, or one of the three priorities, and we have focused our document heavily on that as well. And for us and for young farmers, generational renewal is about encouraging more young people into the industry and giving them the measures they need in order to be able to survive within the industry, but at the same time acknowledging and understanding the needs of older farmers and providing a mechanism by which they can exit the industry if they so wish. And our land mobility and succession report indicated that 45% of farmers wanted to retire or would like to retire, so that's a significant figure. So we have outlined, as you have outlined there, a succession proposal, and we want to get away from the word retirement, more towards succession and collaboration. The pension issue has caused debate within the country, and I would say that even our succession proposal is a softened proposal, considering what's being considered across Europe within the other young farmer organisations, because we're very conscious that the older farmers have a huge amount to give in terms of the industry, but we don't want to be accused as young farmers of in any way trying to
put them in the nursing home
or push them out. But at the same time, this is the overwhelming feedback we've received from our members, that there needs to be some elements within CAP to accommodate older farmers that would like to get out of the industry.
How often is the conversation of renewal or generation renewal or farm succession, is that happening? Like, what's your document say?
Yeah, we have in our document, and as part of our survey, we asked, had the conversation happened around succession within all the young farmers' families, and 71% said that it had. So that is significant. It's probably
higher than
a significant higher figure than we would have actually imagined. So that's but there is the 30% that haven't had that conversation, and I know there's a difficulty in certain families and some families about having that conversation, but we would encourage all farm families to consider the farm succession piece, and to see are there identified farming successors? And if there aren't, then maybe there is time then to maybe come up with the way of finding someone to farm the land. And we have seen that our land mobility programme is very successful in putting together farm partnerships and share farming arrangements, which are an alternative, and that's what we will be talking about in terms of collaboration. And obviously as well, you have the whole issue of farm safety and all of that, and there's a lot of indeed young and old farmers being killed on farms, and so that's is a concern as well for us all.
So just give us the nuts and bolts. How did you go about getting 1,000 voices into this document?
Well, we had a consultation, and we're delighted to be associated with the Irish Farmers Journal for the completion of our young farmer consultation. We had 5 meetings across the country. They were roundtable discussion where we posed a number of questions to the young farmers attending to get their feedback. All of that information was collated into the document, and the Agricultural Affairs Committee came together to put that together and to ratify and approve our document. And also as part of that, we did a survey which received additional information, and within the document there's a number of charts and statistics and figures, and that information has been gained as a result of the survey which we have completed. So we would say that it's a very honest appraisal of the views of young farmers, but at the same time it's conscious of the needs of older farmers, and we have focused on the generational renewal piece because that's where it's at. That's and really if CAP 2020 is to be successful in terms of the generational renewal piece, the EU Commission will have to make the hard decisions and take on board some of the proposals which we have proposed.
And finally, you're on the downhill into retirement from
I am
President.
indeed.
What's the general feeling 2 years on now, Sean?
It has been a very busy 2 years. I have tried my best over the 2 years to represent the interests of Irish young farmers, both here at a local, national and European level. We have had many successes within that period of time. I suppose the CAP document is something which we did prioritise. Also in terms of the Young Farmer National Reserve, the young farmers can thank Macra na Firma for a 2017 Young Farmer National Reserve. And even looking back through the presidency, there are a number of other things which Macra secured for young farmers, including a top-up on the EU aid, dairy aid money. And we have further developed our young farmer training programme and continue to work and lobby on behalf of young farmers at all levels within the country, and that's very evident from the lobbying.ie return, which anyone can access to see our work on behalf of young farmers.
So be it Evans or Healy, you're fairly happy handing over the chain?
Yeah, look, I've been honoured. It's been an honour to have the role and to be in the role and to be elected by the membership of the organisation, and I wish both candidates the best of luck. I know next week is the election count, so I wish both candidates the best of luck, and I will be there in whatever. There's nothing as past as a past president, they say, but I wish them both the best luck in whichever of them is elected, and they've both ran very good campaigns.
Great, thanks, Sean. Look, the CAP document is extensive. It put out a lot of food for thought for policymakers and shapers over the next couple of years running into CAP. So, Sean, you can read more about it in this week's Farmers Journal and on farmersjournal.ie.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and on iTunes every Thursday.
Our Northern Ireland editor, David Wright, reports from the AFVI conference in Belfast. There he spoke with Dr. Theon Vellinga about phosphates issue in the Netherlands and the levels of cow culling currently going on.
Hi, David Wright here, the Northern Ireland editor of the Irish Farmers Journal. I have with me Thai Vanagan from Wageningen University. Thai just presented today at a conference organised by the AFBI and here in just outside Belfast. He is obviously from Holland, and I suppose has some issues around where they've got issues around the intensive sector, which are relevant to Northern Ireland, given that we have an intensive sector as well. So perhaps first of all, can you just describe what happened in the Netherlands, how you got to where you got to, what were the main drivers, what were the main problems that you ended up having to take some drastic action in the last few months?
Well, the most important driver for the actions in the last 3 months is the phosphate surplus. There is a limit to phosphate excretion by the dairy sector, and that has exceeded by about 10% due to the increase in cattle numbers for increasing milk production. This phosphate limit is one of the conditions for the derogation of the dairy sector, which is essential for the existence of the dairy sector. So we have to reduce the phosphate excretion by the dairy sector, and this is done of a combination of decreasing in animal numbers and decreasing the phosphate content of compound feeds. And that in a year time will have to reduce the phosphate excretion back to the limit.
We all saw figures over 100,000, 180,000 cows that were to be culled in the Netherlands.
Yes, there is a buyout of 15 million with 50 million euros for a very fast reduction of the animal numbers, and these have to be culled all. And the other farms, the remaining farms, have to reduce their animal numbers when they have a phosphate surplus at the farm. Go back to the reference level of 2nd of July 2015, minus 4%. The more extensive farms, they have to go back to the level of 2 July 2015 without any further reduction. But it means that in fact all farms have to go back in animal numbers.
And you also mentioned during your presentation that the Dutch consumers want to see cows outside, like to see cows outside, and actually getting more cows outside, it helps solve the problem to an extent?
It will not change anything in the phosphate problem, I think, but the phosphate is not the only challenge for the Dutch dairy sector. It's a combination of nitrogen, nitrate leaching, ammonia volatilization, phosphate, and also greenhouse gas emissions. And what we see, if you will graze more, then we will have a reduction of ammonia emissions. Yeah. But then we will have probably an increase in nitrate leaching, especially on the sandy soils that are vulnerable to leaching.
Okay, so it's not as simple as maybe here. If we put more forage into our cows, we can partly solve our own issues around phosphate. That's not as simple for you in the Netherlands going forward.
No, indeed, it's not that simple. Also, given the fact that beside the dairy sector, we also have a very large pig and poultry sector. For which we also import feed. So also from these animals we have a large nitrogen and phosphorus surplus, and also manure has to be processed. So it's the combination that, makes it like you're in a pressure cooker.
And would you say, you've been here in Northern Ireland, would you have any fears for where we are around these sort of issues? Because obviously our phosphate is rising in our fresh water again, which is of a concern to industry here. We've got an intensive livestock industry as well, maybe not as intensive as yours, but what do we need to be careful of? What do we need to watch out for, that we don't end up in a situation where your industry's ended up?
Indeed, the situation is a bit different here because it's intensive, but it's not as livestock dense as in our country. On the other hand, I think when you look at the increasing phosphate surpluses on the dairy farms, which seem to have a relationship with the water quality, indeed, you should reduce the phosphate surpluses and try to reduce the compound feed fraction in the animals' ration and rely more on forage, so that you can reduce the forage surpluses and in fact be ahead of the discussion and be ahead of the problems. Because when the problems are there, you have to repair. You already lost your good name.
And is that something? Do you fear that has happened to the Netherlands to an extent? Is there a bad feeling? Is there a bad feeling among the farmers there that with the European Commission, or are they resigned to the fact that they've had a problem they've had to cure?
Well, it's different. There are always a group of farmers who don't consider this as a problem, and others they're quite aware of it. But what you see that in the public opinion, the dairy sector is now debated as well. Which was only the pig and poultry sector was subject of public debate. Now you see that the dairy sector is also being subject of public debate, caused by the phosphate surpluses, caused by the reduced grazing, caused by biodiversity problems. So you see that where they were the ambassador of livestock, they're losing that position. And in fact, you should be ahead of that because it's easier lost than gained.
Yeah, good point. Okay, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Finally, the big day has arrived. The Agri Careers Festival in the RDS takes place on Thursday, with some 1,100 jobs on offer. Our reporter Amy McShane speaks to Mary Phelan, the Irish Country Living's career editor, about the huge range of jobs on offer and the many exhibitors that will be there.
Hi, my name's Amy McShane and I'm here with Irish Country Living's Education and Careers Editor, Mary Phelan. Mary, the Agri Careers Fair is tomorrow. What do people need to know?
Okay, well, primarily there are 1,122 jobs at the Agri Careers Fair tomorrow. So if you were looking for a job, really, where else would you be going this week? And I guess you don't have to have experience farming or a degree in ag science in order to come to the fair. There are a lot of roles for people, particularly in accountancy, engineering, people who have qualifications in IT and technology, and in marketing and human resource, those kind of areas. It's starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning in the RDS main hall, and you need to register on agricareers.ie.
And you've had some new recent additions to the lineup of exhibitors.
Yeah, we certainly have. So actually, as of just this week, we have Dawn Farm Foods. They're recruiting for 27 roles at the fair. Bank of Ireland are also participating. The Traditional Meat Company, which is based in County Meath, are also there. They have 7 roles to fill. And we also have Limerick Institute of Technology. Agri Tech is another company that are recently have been added to the lineup. They're recruiting for 15 roles, which are mainly in sales. So yeah, they're just the recent exhibitor announcements on top of all of the other companies that we have been announcing over recent weeks. So, excuse me. We have a lot of dairy co-ops, we have a huge amount of meat processors, we have some ag machinery manufacturers and brands, and we have some government agencies as well. So really it's going to be a very exciting day and just a huge breadth of opportunities really in terms of jobs.
Yeah, so just in terms of the opportunities, if you had to describe the range of roles that are there, what would you say?
Okay, so the roles vary from herdsperson to milker to accountant to marketing communications manager to lead software developer, which is quite an IT role, to fitter and welder with ag machinery manufacturers, to equine nutritional support, assistant dairy farm manager, service engineer, health and safety manager, veterinary surgeon, press brake operator, again that's with a machinery manufacturer, painter, then roles on the factory floor in meat processors, painter, boner, trimmer. As I said, a lot of accountancy roles. HRI are looking for interns on their race courses. So really, I hope you can kind of see there that there are roles for people who have a lot of qualifications and who are very experienced in their fields, like IFAC are looking for 20 senior accountants, while there are also a lot of very practical hands-on farming roles. Like we have 2 roles for lambing shepherds, for example, and one of those is off the coast of Dublin on Lamb Bay Island. And, you know, stock person, herds person, I've mentioned some of those, milker. You know, so really for all people who have any kind of an interest in the sector, whether you have gone to college or whether you have experience on a farm and haven't gone to college, there is something for you there tomorrow.
There's just a huge range across the whole board, really.
There really, really is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be a really good day and it's not to be missed.
It is a really good day out, and, you know, it's not just a jobs expo. I mean, there's 1,122 jobs there, so really it is all about jobs in a sense, but there are stages running all throughout the day with talks from really, really interesting people in the industry who have kind of carved out very successful careers for themselves, whether that's in a big ag business or whether it is the Whites, for example, in County Meath, where there are 15 people deriving an income from the one farm. I mean, that's a huge success story on the farming side of things. You know, to our Agri Hub, which will be focusing again on farming as a career, to the School Zone, which will have a lot of information for those who are interested in pursuing ag courses at 3rd level. Really, there's just a lot to see and hear about, so I really look forward to meeting as many people as possible tomorrow.
Yeah, so it kicks off at 10 a.m. in the RDS.
10 a.m. in the RDS main hall tomorrow. See you there.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thanks, Amy.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.